Welcome to our Parkinson's Foundation Wellness Wednesday program, a Care Partner Town Hall. I am Kim Nitz, a Community Program Manager for the Parkinson's Foundation. I am tuning in today from the Kansas City area. We warmly welcome all of our care partners from around the country, Canada, and beyond. Just know, as care partners, you are not alone. Your Parkinson's community is here today with you. And we encourage you all to turn on your video today by clicking on Start Video at the bottom left of your screen, just so you can be able to better interact and connect with the other care partners. The mission of the Parkinson's Foundation is to make lives better for people living with Parkinson's by improving care and advancing research today until there's a tomorrow without the disease. In everything we do, we build on the energy, experience, and passion of the global Parkinson's community. Our virtual PD Health at Home programs, including Mindfulness Mondays, Wellness Wednesdays, and Fitness Fridays, are inspired by you, our viewers. We look forward to sharing new programs with you in the weeks and months ahead. We also hope to continue offering programs focused on care partners. So we appreciate any feedback that you're able to provide after today's program as we look toward future offerings. Today's session will be recorded and posted on parkinson.org/pdhealth. It's here that you'll also find our upcoming program registration and past archived events. Before we get started, I'd like to share a slide with some information about our registered audience today. You'll see that a majority of our care partners here today are in the earlier stages of their journey, but definitely a shout out to those who have even decades of caregiving experience. Thanks to all for being here today. So we have a lot to discuss today. Ready to get started. And first, I'm happy to introduce our speakers. We have two members of our Parkinson's Foundation Helpline with us today. First, we have Amanda Janicki. She is a licensed clinical social worker, as well as a certified dementia practitioner. Amanda has focused her career on supporting and advocating for older adults, people with dementia, and individuals living with chronic health conditions, as well as their families and care partners. So welcome, Amanda. Next, we have Colleen McKee. Colleen joined the Parkinson's Foundation as one of our Helpline information specialists in 2018, with past experience teaching Spanish at the university level. She also served as a devoted caregiver to both of her parents through their journey with neurological disease, and has a passion for helping others access resources and cope with a difficult medical diagnosis. And finally, we'd like to welcome Marie Head. Marie and her husband, Don Miller, got involved with the Parkinson's Foundation shortly after Don was diagnosed in 2011. Marie recently received a 3-year appointment to our foundation's People with Parkinson's Advisory Council, or PPAC, and please join me in welcoming Marie. I'm actually going to hand it over to you now. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much, Kim, for that introduction. And hello, everyone. We're so happy that you are here today for the Care Partner Town Hall. It's going to be a great session today, and we have lots of information to share. As mentioned earlier, we love seeing your faces. It's just a reminder that you're on with us and that we can share a lot of information along the way. So, along those lines, can you give us a wave? I see the waves. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for doing that. It's great to see you. So I want to start out today by telling you a little bit about my and Don's story. And first of all, to share with you that personally, I like the term care partner over caregiver. It denotes to me an agreement between a person with a chronic condition and their loved ones that they need to be partners with as they go through the journey of caring for each other, and also in a wellness situation with each other, and any health issues that come up, they're able to partner on and share. It takes a conscious effort and ongoing communications to make sure that you get the partnership part of being a partner right. So when Don was first diagnosed back in 2011, I remember that I went into what I called take care of him mode. It was just my nature. It was what I'd done before in other care partnering situations. Of course, he wanted to be independent, and I want him to be independent. So early on, we had to really try to get in sync with how this was going to work with our partnership in this new situation that we were in. I remember a specific situation where he was getting dressed one day and he was buttoning his shirt, and I realized that he was having trouble. So I just went over and buttoned his shirt for him. I mean, I'm his wife. I can do things like that, right? So I remember that he sighed a little bit and he said to me that I can do that myself. And of course, I kind of threw up my hands and said, I was just trying to be helpful. So as we went along this journey and we had some similar situations along those lines, we decided that we would sit down and we'd have a conversation about how we would work through this and how we would communicate. So during those communications, he suggested that maybe I should help when he asked for it. So that's the deal that we made, is that if he asked me for his help, I would be there to help him. And also, it would be reversed for me. I can ask for his help if I need it, or I can share with him that I need further help. Sometimes that comes out just as, I've noticed that maybe you're struggling today. So is it okay if I help with something? And I wait for him to answer. And then other times it can be something like, honey, we're going to be late for dinner if we don't hurry up. So is it okay if I help, right? So we think about those things and we try to be mindful of when we need to be helpful with each other. It goes both ways, and we both have learned to have a greater skill at communicating when we need some of that assistance. We don't always get it right, and of course it's not easy, but it helps to know that we can communicate and that we're in this partnership together. So I will also try to help with some tips today of some other things as we go through our agenda for today. We have a great opportunity today to hear more from the experts that Kim introduced a few minutes ago. The Helpline is such a great resource. I have the phone number in my cell phone. I share it with other people. I text it to other people sometimes who may need some help, and I also call it myself when I need help. So before we get into the meat of the program today, Amanda is going to share a little more with you about the Helpline. Amanda?
Thank you, Marie. Thanks so much. Yes, we do encourage you to call the helpline. We're here Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern Time. We're here to answer your questions in English or Spanish. Colleen is one of our Spanish speakers. And we're here for you in a variety of ways. So any question you have, feel free to call us. We'll try to guide you the best we can. We speak to care partners, people with Parkinson's, other family members, and health professionals. So again, please reach out to us. We really do try to support you. If you're looking for resources, whether that's virtual, online resources, or something in your community, we're glad to help you with that search. We try to help by answering questions you may have about the disease, the progression, treatment options, medication, research, and we're also here to give you some encouragement. We talk to a lot of people, and so we're happy to share what we're hearing from others as well about what might work or not work. So again, really hopeful that you reach out to us.
It's great, Amanda. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. So we're going to start today with some questions for our team here from the Helpline. And then don't forget, put your questions in the chat box as we move along, and we'll try to answer as many as we can as we move along today. So let's get started here.
Okay, Marie, thank you so much for referring to us as the experts. I think Amanda and I both just want to say how much we value the knowledge of the care partners that are viewing today, and just your incredible diversity. Sometimes when you hear the word caregiving or care partners, you have this image of one thing, but we realize that your situations are so diverse and that you have a lot to bring to the discussion today. Our first question today is kind of a theme that comes through from callers more than a specific question that we hear. It's how can I work towards more open communication with the person I'm caring for? And I know that you all have such amazing tips. I'm going to start with something that may seem kind of basic, but I think it's important to be mindful of, and that's how to become a better listener. And this is something that both the care partner and the person with Parkinson's can work towards, and it can have such a positive impact on communication. So I actually want to start by discussing how communications break down, and there's some really interesting research on this topic by Dr. Angela Roberts at Northwestern University, and it's presented in one of our recent webinars, and you haven't checked it out, you should. It's called Communication Strategies for Optimal Success. And the interesting part of the research that she presents is that a lot of people might think that it's the motor aspect of Parkinson's related speech issues that are the main cause of communication breakdowns. So things like low voice volume, or that difficulty of modulating voice intensity or speech rate, and even issues controlling facial expressions. But surprisingly, her research shows that many communication breakdowns are not related to voice clarity issues. Her studies do indicate that people with Parkinson's can need more time to process information or pause more in conversation, and may struggle with some words. And perhaps due to these challenges, her studies indicate that 61% of communication breakdowns come from interrupting or talking over the other person, and that the care partner does this more often than the person with Parkinson's. So in other words, the majority of communication breakdowns result from not taking turns in conversations. And so she suggests some really good strategies, and I think they're helpful for everybody, really, not only care partner and person with Parkinson's. Reviewing these kind of has been helping my own relationship in communication. So she says, to try to minimize distractions, making sure that you're in the same room and you're with your loved one and facing each other when you start trying to have a conversation. I'm really guilty of trying to multitask. So I might be doing the dishes and trying to talk to my husband a few rooms away, and he tells me that this doesn't work very well. So the other tip she says is that just because people with Parkinson's may need more time to process and to respond, that we need to give them that time. So, but she says that actually this is one of the hardest habits to break. We like to interrupt and overtalk and interject because perhaps we have this, idea of what a good conversation should be, that it should be lively and it should be kind of this back and forth exchange and spontaneous, but that doesn't work so well. So, and the last strategy that she mentions is to avoid changing topics quickly. So to stick with one topic, and then, if you think you're going to forget an idea that pops up into your mind, to write it down, and then just save those topics for later. So I'm going to throw it back to Amanda and see what she has to say.
Thanks, Colleen. Thanks so much. When I think about how to work towards more open communication, as you said, that is a common question we receive on the helpline. I think about what might be a reason why your loved one with Parkinson's is keeping you on the periphery. Why isn't it open quite yet? And I want to think that through. So what might that be? And having some of that context for why it's not quite where you want it to be, it might help you maybe understand how to approach things a little bit differently. So I'm thinking of, okay, is it your loved one who just got diagnosed and they're not really sure how they feel about having Parkinson's yet? So they're not really even sure how to let you in. They don't know how to really wrap their head around their disease yet. And so, you want to partner with them, but they're just not there yet. That's a possibility. Another possibility is that your loved one wants to maybe protect you or kind of buffer a little bit. And they think maybe if they let you in, that it's going to be a burden to you, or that for some reason it might, cause some changes to your relationships that they're just not sure they're ready for. They don't know what that might look like yet. And so they don't know if they want to really talk about it with you. I think for some people with Parkinson's, there might be some embarrassment or shame around their disease, or, maybe it's just not part of their role that they've usually had in the family or with you, to be in a partnership about their health. So, again, thinking about that context a little bit, to me, I wonder if it'll help you maybe approach things a little bit differently and try it a different way. I also think, like Marie mentioned at the start, really putting some control back to your loved one, asking, how do you think I could be involved at this stage? What are some ways that maybe I can help you? And maybe you don't get an answer right away, but you're kind of planting the seed that you do want to be involved and that it's important to you to be a partner with them. And then maybe you can kind of reconnect on that a little bit later. But again, you're giving them a chance to think about how they might want to invite you in. Marie, what's the next question?
So that was great. Thank you so much for that. I have a couple of tips to add. First, from our audience that came in before the session started. We have a tip from Denise in California, who says, slow down, be mindful of the pace at which your loved one is processing what you say to them. I understand that because I know sometimes I tend to want to finish Don's sentences right before he even gets finished with his thoughts. So that is really, really a great tip from Denise. Another tip comes from Kelly in Tennessee, who shares with us that practice face-to-face communications, not from across the room. And I think that Colleen hit on that just a minute ago, like, talking to somebody from a different room or whatever, that's a great tip, right? Let's sit down and talk about this while we both can focus on it. That's great. So our next question is, and this is for Amanda to start. My loved one often gets upset if I point out changes I observe in their PD symptoms. What can I do?
That's tough. I mean, your loved one getting upset, I really wonder what meaning is associated with what you're bringing up. So something that you're saying is maybe threatening, maybe they're potentially jumping to a conclusion. So I'm going to give an example. Let's say that you're noticing that while your loved one is driving, maybe there are Parkinson's symptoms, whether it's maybe tremor, maybe it's rigidity or dyskinesia. What if you're kind of worried that that's affecting their driving? And so you want to bring it up. But when you bring it up, your loved one may jump to the conclusion that, oh, well, she thinks I can't drive anymore. And I mean, that would make somebody really upset, right? And so potentially that's not where you were going at all with it. Maybe you just wanted to be sure that you could bring it up to the doctor and say, like, let's see what the doctor can do. Maybe we can adjust your medications, or maybe drive at a different time of day when you're feeling better. But keeping in mind that there's maybe a lot of meaning that your loved one is holding around that symptom or what you're trying to say. So thinking about that again, I always think about the context. You might want to kind of step back and think, okay, maybe I can acknowledge maybe that fear that the loved one might have if I point this out. That might be a strategy to consider. I think also, Colleen, did you want to mention anything?
I do. Thanks, Amanda. I struggled with getting myself off mute. I kind of want to move into just talking about intention, because I think that's something that's really important to consider. Sometimes we have this temptation just to initiate a conversation about a new symptom and do it in a spontaneous way. But I guess I encourage you to stop and consider two questions. What do I hope to accomplish by talking about this? And what am I feeling? I think, Amanda mentioned that the symptoms can have a lot of meaning for the person with Parkinson's, but also for the care partner. And speaking from experience, sometimes care partners think that, by talking, we can get some kind of control over what's happening. But sometimes, our emotions are getting in the way, and we can't really effectively communicate. So in these cases, I think it can be helpful to talk to somebody else first to work out some of what you're feeling and thinking, get another perspective. And this person could be a friend, it could be another family member, maybe a member of your support group, a counselor, a spiritual leader. So it often helps just to be heard, I think, and just taking this time to do this kind of pre-work can put you in a really good place to objectively and supportively bring up sensitive symptoms. So there are a lot of really good reasons to talk about symptoms together. I think that maybe the first thing is to let your loved one know that he or she's not alone, that you're there to help go, process this information, what's happening. You can share valuable information. You can brainstorm solutions together and prepare for the next medical appointment. I guess one last point is that if your loved one is defensive or irritable, it may be helpful to remind yourself that it may not be personal and that they're coping with a lot of changes, and also that irritability can be indicative of other conditions like depression, or may even be related to Parkinson's medications. So, Amanda, I think that you were going to talk about some suggestions, like concrete suggestions on how to start conversations like this.
Yeah, Colleen, I like what you said about doing a little bit of pre-work. I will say, in my relationship, I like to say something that's on my mind when it's on my mind. And if it's bothering me, I want to get it out. And I think that in some cases in a care partner relationship with your loved one with Parkinson's, that might not always be the best thing. And I think that kind of change for some people may be a little frustrating. And so I do think you're right, Colleen, trying to get some more support around you as the care partner, so that if you are frustrated and it isn't the best time to bring it up to your loved one, maybe because they're fatigued, it's, their off time, that maybe you have someone else to turn to that you trust, that you can kind of be able to vent or just explore these feelings, because your loved one may not be able to offer that to you right now. And again, you do need to be able to have someone to talk to. But I do think, again, keep in mind the time of day. Maybe there is a better time of day that your loved one may be more receptive or able to engage in a conversation with you. I do think that if you make it about you as the care partner, that might be something to try. So for example, I want to make sure that as the care partner, I want to make sure that I am doing my best to support you, in your independence, or I want to make sure I understand so that I can be the best care partner with you. So I really want to find out from the doctor about XYZ symptom, or I'd like to call the Parkinson's Foundation and get some information because I want to make sure I really understand and can be the best support for you. It's kind of more about you, and it's harder to argue with that, I think. And then the only other tip I have on this one is asking your loved one what they think. What are they experiencing some frustrations with their symptoms? They might bring it up before you have to.
That's great, Noel. I really felt like that last tip from Amanda about, they may bring it up to you, and you should be prepared to respond then with how you see the situation too, so that you can talk it through. That's good. All of that was very, very great advice. So question number 3, and I'm going to start with Amanda on this one. How can I tell my loved one that I need more help in supporting him or her?
So I think that you're at a fork in the road, right? What has been happening, it's just not working. It's not going to be sustainable. And so having help is really not an option. You need it. You're at that point. And so my recommendation is to frame it as something that's for you as the care partner. It's not that your loved one with Parkinson's needs more help. It's that you as the care partner need more help, so that you can continue to be a good support for them, and whatever other relationship you have, whether it's daughter, spouse, partner, whatever it might be. In order for you to be the best for them, you need some help. And so I could even envision a care partner framing this as, I need to get an assistant. you know, and maybe that's someone to help you with things around the house, you know, laundry, chores, meal preparation, errands, things that will literally take some pressure off you as the care partner so that you can focus on the other tasks. And maybe over time, your loved one would become a little more comfortable with that person being around and maybe welcome them to help with other more personal tasks. I mean, that's ideal. But I also think there's possibility here to take a little of the pressure off your shoulders and blame the doctor. You know, the doctor says, if I don't get help for myself, I'm going to throw my back out again. Or, you know, the doctor says, if I don't get a little support, I'm going to get too run down and I don't want to get sick. I want to be here for you. Again, kind of making it about you is a little harder to argue with that. What do you think, Colleen?
I have a little bit to add, Amanda. Those were really great ideas, I think. I guess that I would say that it can be kind of hard to remember or even believe, but that your emotional and physical health as care partners are just as important as your loved ones. And I think that can kind of feel scary, or you might even feel like you're being aggressive or mean by stating that you have a need and that it's not negotiable. That being said, I think there are some ways to smooth the transition as well towards acceptance. If you do, in fact, encounter some resistance. And I think one of the ideas I have is that you could talk with your loved one about the need to build the network of support, as much for him as for you or her. This network may include a paid home health aide, but it could also include so many other people like friends and family, church members, volunteers even, neighbors, and just remind your loved one that staying engaged and stimulating the brain and being socially active are so important. And maybe emphasizing this might be a good way to sort of pave the way towards accepting outside help. Marie, do you have anything to add to that? I bet you have some tips.
So I love the tip about, you know, getting your support group around you, right? And so they can be very, very helpful, family members or even friends, you know, if your loved one has a friend that can come by and say, hey, you want to play a game of chess this afternoon or whatever, you know, and you can use that as examples for future discussions of how that's helpful to you. You know, there are different levels of support that you need, you know, the medical and, you know, some professional help, but there's other ways also of trying to ease, you know, some of those situations too. So we also have a tip from Diane in Connecticut, who shares, understand that you may need help and don't hesitate to reach out for help. So that's a great tip, Diane. Okay, the next question we have here, and I'm going to start with Colleen this time. How can my family get on the same page about the care needed for the person with PD? Great question.
Yeah, it is a good question. And I will say that I'm coming from the perspective of being one of 4 children in the care for both of my parents. So probably, you know, I pay more attention to kind of the family dynamics aspect and where that can break down. And I'd like to say, I guess, you know, not everybody's going to be on the same page all the time, and we kind of have to deal with that. It's part of growing up, I think. So your family dynamics might be harmonious, but I'm thinking that some of you might have families like me, and there might be some frequent disagreements. Some caregiving arrangements are simply, I think, more complex than others. Sometimes there are adult children, multiple adult children trying to support the person with Parkinson's, you know, from other states, and they don't agree on treatment options. Or it might be a blended family, and that can be tricky when there's a step parent who's the primary care partner. And one of my Helpline colleagues described a situation in which not one, but 2 ex-wives were providing care. So I can only imagine that that was a little bit tricky. So one thing that can help minimize disputes is when everyone knows what's expected of them and how they can coordinate care, how they can contribute. And I think starting estate planning early and sharing, you know, these decisions and what went into these decisions can be really important in getting people on the same page. And so just briefly, and I think probably many of you are already exploring this, and I think all of us should be, estate planning can include the following: powers of attorney for finances and healthcare and advanced directives. Yeah, so finally, you know, even prior to receiving the news of Parkinson's diagnosis, some families have really challenging dynamics. So when there are serious disputes, what do? They could be affecting your emotional health or the ability to coordinate good treatment for your loved one with Parkinson's. And family counseling might be a good option. You could also turn to an objective friend, a spiritual leader, a social worker, or a psychologist. In extreme cases of family discord, I think you might want to consult with a mediator. And a mediator can be helpful just in facilitating these difficult conversations where there's a lot of emotions, and they can remind everybody of the wishes of the person with Parkinson's, and they can highlight important facts and provide valuable insight. So, Amanda, did you have something to add here too?
Yeah, I think that, you know, let's say that unfortunately, you know, you try all that and your family's still not on the same page. I think it's important, you know, you mentioned this a couple of times, Colleen, but I do think it's important to be sure that you as the care partner, especially if you're in that decision-making role and those decisions are not respected or validated by your other family, I think it's so important to have somebody on your team, on your side, that does offer that validation to you. It doesn't have to be something formal. It can be, you know, a friend that's kind of been through this before, but maybe it is a counselor just for you. But that's so important because, you know, we talk to a lot of people and sometimes family doesn't come around. And if you don't have that, or if you're in that, you still need someone to be cheerleading for you because it is hard to do that on your own. The only thing I want to add here is for people listening today who are not really in this situation, they're not experiencing any family discord, or things are really going pretty smoothly with their loved one, I think it might be something to consider kind of bringing your family into your world a little bit by sharing what is it like, you know, what's a day in the life like with you and your loved one with their Parkinson's, you know, what are you doing as far as tending to this, you know, this situation? Do you travel an hour to see a doctor? Are you engaged in these online exercise classes? You know, are you reading certain books? Bringing them up to speed a little bit now while things are pretty smooth and things are going well. I think that helps, you know, because if things change, if, you know, you do get to a point where you're looking for some guidance about care, they're not kind of in the dark. They've got a sense of what's been happening all along. So that's just an idea for people maybe earlier on.
Great, thank y'all so much. And we've got about 5 more minutes to go here with our questions here, and then we're going to take some questions from the chat room, okay? The last question for you guys from the agenda today is, how can I communicate more effectively with my loved one's medical team? Colleen, can you start with that?
Sure, yeah, I have a few ideas. There's so much to say here, but I'm going to try to limit myself. First of all, both of your perspectives are extremely valuable. So whenever you can, you should try to accompany your loved one in medical appointments. You might notice things that your loved one doesn't notice, like irritability, you know, or signs of depression. And your loved one might notice things such as anxiety or pain when medications are wearing off, and all of this is important information for the medical team. You know, when you're actually in the appointment, I guess one tip is to continue with the good listening skills and to model those for the members of the medical care team by intentionally allowing your loved one ample time to process information, to respond. And then, you know, this happens sometimes the care team, the medical care team doesn't direct their questions to the person with Parkinson's. So you, as the care partner, need to remind them or prompt them to direct their questions to your loved one as well. And then I just want to finish with a little some nuts and bolts, because these are the kind of conversations that I'm having with people. When you're in that appointment, try to ask all the important questions. So about communication, how can we communicate with you in between visits, right? So email, portal, is it okay to call with questions? And if so, when can we call, and who should we speak with? And then also, what do we do if we have an urgent question? So those questions come up all the time. And then finally, just really the nitty gritty. So what do I do if my loved one has skipped a dose or doubled up on a dose? What's the protocol? Or what happens if a dose doesn't work and this happens after hours? So Amanda, I think you have the last thoughts, and then we're gonna move to the open section.
Yep, just to add on exactly, Colleen, to those questions that you have as far as during that appointment or during that phone call with your loved one's doctor, I think it's helpful to be a few steps ahead if the doctor is recommending a medication change. And what I mean is asking the doctor specifically, how long should we expect to have this medication? How long will it take for this medication to work? Should it take 2 days? Should we notice a difference in 3 weeks, 6 weeks? That helps you get a sense of what to expect. And then also asking the doctor, what side effects should we be expecting? Which one should we call you about? Because maybe they're more serious. And also asking the doctor, how do we know when it's, maybe time to go back to the drawing board? Is it after a month? Is it after 2 months? And even maybe exploring with the doctor, kind of saying, I'm just curious, is there a reason why we might want to try this option as opposed to other options? Or what are the other options aside from this? Is there anything else we could try if this doesn't work? And that, for some people, I think gives some peace of mind because you have a greater sense of maybe what to expect with this medication change. Marie, what do you think?
The only thing that I'm going to add to your great suggestions is, we keep a notebook and we write down our visits. We write down what our questions was, whether we got responses or not. And also we log into, when our medical team has a patient portal, we log in sometimes and send questions ahead of our appointment, because sometimes the doctors run behind, or you don't get as much time as you thought you were going to get or whatever. And we make an agreement early on that it's okay to ask certain questions, right? So that would be my only thing to add to those great tips. And so Stephen from California has a tip for this too, and it's try to appreciate the patient's perspective. Wait until his or her opinion has been completely shared. That's great. Thank you for that, Stephen. Thank you. So we have some questions in the chat room here, and so let me pick up the first question and share it with you. My husband has started mumbling and is hard to understand at times. It becomes annoying to both of us when I keep asking him to repeat what he said. First, how can I deal with this in the moment? And second, are there therapies to help with enunciation? Amanda, want to try that first?
Sure. I think having some compassion for what both of you are experiencing, it's got to be frustrating for him. It's understandably frustrating for you. So having a little bit of that compassion, giving a little space, a little more time. But I do think being sensitive is really key. That'll carry you through that interaction. I would absolutely look into therapies. Speech therapy is what I'm thinking of, connecting with a speech therapist. But I do think it's okay to even just say it out loud. Like, I know you're having a hard time. This it sounds like you're kind of having a hard time, and I'm sure this is frustrating for you. And just acknowledging and kind of stating what is, because that's what's happening. And I think that shows your sensitivity, and that you do have, you want to give your loved ones some more time. Like, I'm here when you're ready.
I like that, Amanda, a lot. That compassion portion of this. And, we have people that call the helpline, and sometimes it's hard to understand them. And, I have to find kind of creative ways to let them know that I didn't understand everything, and I try to give that some time, because sometimes I think I don't understand. And then, if I allow a little bit more time, I actually can. And I'll just say things like, I really appreciate that you're sharing with me, and I didn't get everything, so I'll have to ask you to repeat. But just, making sure that you know, compassion and love kind of come through. And then just remembering too that it's normal to get frustrated. So even, you know, if there's hearing loss, sometimes with speech issues, you know, if it happens every day and you're kind of on the edge already and you're feeling stressed, then it can be difficult to be patient. So finding different ways to process your emotions, you know, and connecting with people in, you know, outside of the couple, the relationship, to really get some perspective.
And just to add to the last portion of that question too, there are speech therapies that you can research online or call the helpline to get help with. And Dawn goes to a speech therapist regularly for the same problem that the person who asked the question is asking for here. So keep that in mind and call and ask for some referrals to your medical team for that. So another reminder real quick here, you can put your questions in the chat box just by clicking at the bottom of your screen where it says chat and typing in your chat and typing in your questions there. And we're going to try to get to as many as we can as we go along here. So the next question in the chat is, how do I give tough love when trying to encourage my spouse to stay active and participate in the therapies? She often complains it's either too hard or she's too tired. Bob asked that question.
I can take this one, Colleen.
Okay.
Okay.
Like, I think, you know, what I envision is that your loved one, you just see it. You see it so clearly as the care partner. You know, if you could just do these exercises, you would feel better, or you'd be, you know, doing better. And so you care and you love them and you want them at that point. It is frustrating. And I'm sure that you want to try that tough love. I think there's always trial and error. You could give it a try, but I do think it may help to have some consideration of maybe what the barriers might be. It sounds like your loved one has already said, you know, I'm too tired, or, you know, it's too hard. But I'm kind of curious about the invisible barriers like anxiety, feeling overwhelmed, depression, maybe even apathy and fatigue, and maybe looking at maybe what role those might play, and maybe the doctor can support you guys with treating those issues, and that might help with motivation or energy to do the exercises. That's where my thought is there.
I just have a little bit to add there too. I think sometimes, and this may not work, but thinking of creative ways to make it more exciting. So bringing in other people, because you're probably spending a lot of time with your loved one with Parkinson's, and they might really benefit from somebody else cheering them on during their exercises, and they might have more incentive to, you know, not give up. So you could add music, kind of explore what's fun for them while exercising. And you might even, you know, there are a lot of different online journals to share with family members the health journey that your loved one might be going through and that you're going through as well. And so if there are therapy gains and your loved one's, you know, lifting more weights this week, you might post that on an online journal and share it with the family, and your loved one with Parkinson's can also look at the comments, and that can be an incentive, that can be encouragement.
So we are getting a lot more questions in the chat room, so I'm going to try to bounce these back and forth between you, okay? So my husband was recently diagnosed with PD. He does not want to tell anyone other than our children, and it's very difficult for me not to mention it to our friends. I'm honoring his wishes not to discuss it, but I wonder when he will finally feel comfortable telling others in our lives about this. Colleen?
That's so tough, and it's such a great question. I guess people have different time frames in which they're ready to talk about things, and so it sounds like you might be ready and need that support, and your husband isn't. I think it's good to remember that denial is a coping mechanism that works sometimes in the beginning, and people might need to kind of put their head in the sand until they're ready to kind of wrap their head around what this means for them. That being said, even if you don't want to, you want to follow his wishes and you don't want to bring other people in yet, you might really need to talk to somebody. And so I would encourage you to, seek out counseling if that's accessible to you.
Okay, next question. Amanda, is stuttering a symptom of PD, and are there any tips for working with that challenge?
Yes, absolutely. Stuttering can be part of Parkinson's, and definitely reach out to your doctor about speech therapy. Ask for that order from your doctor. Call us. We can send you some names of speech therapists that may be near you. I think it's really valuable for not just stuttering, many other speech and voice and communication challenges that you might encounter with Parkinson's.
Thank you. How can we minimize the fear? My sister has seen her father-in-law and mother suffer from this or similar diseases, and she's very fearful of the future and what's to come.
I can take that. I can start with that for sure. That fear is real. I think it can help to connect with other people that are also, caring or providing support for a loved one with a, progressive neurological illness, to realize that, a lot of people are going through this, this, is unfortunately, it is part of life. And, with that support and, realizing that Parkinson's in particular is generally very slowly progressive illness. So the changes are likely to be small, and you're going to, adapt to them little by little and find new ways of coping and really discover, I think, how strong you are. That's one thing that I've learned, with through participating in the caring of my two parents, is that I'm so much stronger than I ever thought I was. And I think everybody is.
Amanda, I see you shaking your head, so jump in here if you had something else to add there.
Yeah, when I think of people being fearful, whether it's the care partner being fearful of this new diagnosis or someone with Parkinson's being fearful of the future, I think, okay, how can you take back control? What are some ways to, influence this future? Colleen mentioned care plan or advanced care planning. So your estate planning, getting your powers of attorney in order, your advanced directives. You have so many opportunities with your living will to assert more control, letting people know, sharing what you want your future to look like. Maybe even identifying, what do you want your journey with Parkinson's to look like, and picturing that, and then finding your team to help maybe try to make that more of a reality. So it's kind of scary to think of doing that when you're fearful and not really sure that you want to put your toe into envisioning your future with Parkinson's or as a care partner to someone with Parkinson's, but there are opportunities to take back control.
Yes, I would agree. Getting involved has been a big help for me as a care partner. Okay, next question. What is an effective way to handle hallucinations? You want to start, Amanda?
Sure, that's tough. Of course, you always want to understand the source because that helps with, next steps in treatment and knowing what to do. Of course, let the doctor know if this is new. Is it some other underlying medical condition? Is it a medication side effect? Is it something more organic that's part of the disease progression? Is it part of a dementia? Having that helps you understand what to do, know what the options are for treatment. But as far as how to respond, in the moment, I think it's helpful to take a breath. It's kind of scary, I think, when these are first starting and you don't know if you should tell the truth and try to reorient them to reality. Usually that's not going to be the most helpful. It is usually most helpful to try to validate your loved one, whatever they're feeling in that moment. If they're scared, if they're worried about something, if they feel unsafe, try to get under whatever they're saying and try to identify that feeling and tend to that feeling in your response. I spoke to someone the other day who said, her loved one was hallucinating and thought that there were people watching him go to the bathroom, and she didn't know what to say. She was saying, there's no one here. but that wasn't really tending to that. He thinks there are though. And so she, I said, what about telling everyone to turn around? So that he feels a little more like he has his dignity. And so it's tending to that feeling and kind of running with it a little bit. That might help.
Thank you. Thank you.
I think that's a good idea, Amanda. Affirming that they see something there or someone, and then, just diverting their attention even. If the plant's scary, well, let's water it, let's kind of switch the focus a little bit.
So our next question, Suzanne asked, my husband's support community has been severely impacted during the pandemic. The gym has now reopened and he has reached out for him to rejoin them, but he is hesitant. Is now the time for me to encourage him to get back out there?
I'll take this one.
Right.
I think it's a really personal decision. There's so much to weigh. I really think there's risks either way. There's some risks to not going and kind of staying isolated and less active. And I think there's risks, of course, we all know that there's risks to potentially going out to the group with the virus still being so present. So I think this is something to talk about as a family. Even consult with your doctor and see, see what the doctor might recommend, and even exploring with that fitness center, what are they doing to keep people safe and help you understand what precautions are they taking.
Okay. Sean asked, are there any supports to manage stress in dealing with the onset of Parkinson's related dementia? How can I respond or tell if it's dementia if my loved one or if my loved one is just being difficult? Colleen?
And I'm going to let Amanda take this because this is really her specialty, but I will say that, dementia can sort of magnify traits of your loved one, and they can be positive traits or maybe negative traits. So when you ask, how can I tell if, this is dementia or, my loved one's just being difficult? Well, if you did have if your loved one did have certain tendencies to argue in the past, that could be magnified with dementia. I know with my dad, he was kind of a funny guy, and when he moved into dementia, he was really funny, but he also had streaks of anger. So personality does change or traits get magnified.
Right. I think in this case, I would, of course, suggest making sure that you know what the diagnosis is. So if you're not really sure if there's dementia present, if your loved one is just like, you said, being difficult, I would absolutely connect with the doctor if you haven't already. Maybe there's benefit to a neuropsychological evaluation to get a sense of, is there dementia present? And that will, I think, help if you have the understanding of really what's going on, not guessing at whether this is dementia or, just personality. It might help you also be a little more understanding of what you need, what is needed from you as the care partner if this really is dementia. So that would be my recommendation, and then you can build your supports from there as far as making sure that, again, Colleen and I think you can tell, are big proponents of counseling, but I think it's beneficial to get support for you as the care partner either way, whether your loved one does have dementia or is kind of difficult.
Thank you so much for that. So we're going to, this will be our last question. And so I'm thinking about respite care to help during times when I feel overwhelmed. I don't want my partner to think I don't care, but I feel like I need this to care for myself. Do you have any advice for how I can explain this to my partner? Which one wants to take that?
I think it does tie into what we were saying before, explaining your needs if possible, that you're feeling like you need the support, and it's not that, you don't want to spend time with your loved one, but you need to tend to your own emotional and physical health. So, and sometimes there's no easy way to break it to somebody, and that transition is a little bit tricky. Everybody has to get used to it, that the care is going to look a little bit different, and there'll be other people that are involved. Amanda, did you have anything else to add to that?
I think just normalizing it, that I want to be here for you for the long haul. And I need to kind of just replenish a little bit so that I can come back stronger for you.
Those are all great. That's all great information and tips. Bob has put one last tip in the chat box that I'm going to mention real quickly, and that is for speech therapy to try Parkinson's Voice Project online for speech exercises that have helped both his wife and others so much in preventing swallowing and choking issues. So this has been a great session here. It's been so enlightening to me, and I've been a care partner for a very long time. Thank you, Amanda and Colleen, for your great insight today. We say it often, but the Parkinson's caregiving community has so much to learn from each other. We encourage you to continue your conversation with other care partners at pdconversations.org or in your local community support groups. We also see on our screen now that we have tips from fellow care partners that we couldn't get to all of them today. A lot of them we did talk a little bit about. So this is really, really a great opportunity to learn where to go and seek further information for care for your care partnering needs. So we can't thank all of you enough for joining us today and sharing this valuable time with your fellow care partners in the PD community. Today's session has been recorded and will be archived on the Parkinson's Foundation's website at parkinson.org/pdhealth. It is here that you can also find all the upcoming PD Health at Home programs. I know that you'll enjoy seeing those PD at Health programs. They've been very, very helpful to me and a learning process as we've been through the pandemic. If you have a question today that was not answered, please know we provide free resources, including the website, again, parkinson.org, educational book series you can download or you can order from the website, webinars, podcast, our hospital safety kit called Aware and Care is on the website, and of course the toll-free helpline number. Put it in your phone so that you have easy access to it. You can help others that way, and you can also help when it's there for you when you need it. It's also in the chat box. These resources are being listed in the chat box. So last but not least, we hope you will join us for next week's PD Health at Home programs, including Mindfulness Monday, and Wellness Wednesday programs on September the 2nd. September the 2nd will be how people with Parkinson's and caregivers are helping design research. Again, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a great session, and thanks to the Parkinson's Foundation for their continuing support of people with PD and also the care partner community. Thank you so much.